Hello and welcome to another in the Chat With series. Today I'm talking to Paul Bertorelli, editor-at-large at AvWeb, and famous for not only his incisive reporting and down-to-earth style, but also that epaulet video where you may remember seeing him flying around in a cub with his growing epaulets. Paul, how are you doing?
Well, we're doing as well as can be expected. I've been self-isolating for 2 weeks and 1 day based on personal research I've done in the state of Florida where I live. I live on the west coast of Florida near Sarasota. Some businesses are closed, some aren't. Aviation is not quite at a standstill. There's some training going on, but I would say it's probably dialed back by about half.
So how does it work in the US with regards to, is it a state thing or a federal thing?
Isolation or lockdowns or shelter in place, whatever you want to call it. So the individual governors, 50 governors, are doing it on an ad hoc basis. And within that structure, it's widely variable. In some places, you have a full lockdown. I believe Maryland is one of those. In other places, in Florida, we have just the business closing. Restaurants and bars have been ordered closed.
Okay.
And there are bans on large groups, large activities of any kind. Disney, for example, is closed. But there's no general lockdown. So most people are allowed to go on about their business. We have in Florida right now about 2,000 known cases. Of course, the actual number is probably much higher than that. And it's doubling every 3 days, which it is. We will have 300,000 by the middle of April.
So that doesn't bode well for the decision on Sun and Fun.
It does not. The Sun and Fun drop dead date, if I can use a sad metaphor, is April 17th. So if you look at the curves of propagation in other countries, notably Italy and Spain, they got their first cases right around the time we did in the US and in Florida. And those curves are still propagating. They appear to be still on the exponential part of the curve 3.5 weeks later. So if you look at the 17th, that's about 3 weeks away. And I suspect the data will show that we're still on the accelerating part of the curve. So in that context, how do you make a decision to go forward on May 5th? You have no idea where you'll be. So my guess is it's going to be a no. I just can't see how they can make a decision based on what information is available. Things could change, but it's very difficult to know.
I was watching without getting too deeply into politics. I was watching Trump's address last night, and he was talking about. I think if I got it right, he was talking about churches being full again on Easter Sunday and stuff like that, which is a couple of weeks away. So, I mean that's all out for a full recovery, but who knows? Who knows? Yeah,
well, that would be Easter's April 12th. So he has since backpedaled on that one. I think the CDC people and what science advisors they have left in the White House have cautioned him that that's just not a wise thing to be saying, and it's unlikely that it could ever happen. I think it's analogous to what you had in the UK.
Yeah.
I mean, originally the UK had very loose restrictions.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then all of a sudden the hospitals got overwhelmed, like what, in a few days. And so then if I'm correct here from my reading, the policy quickly changed.
Yeah, there was certainly a fairly swift change, and there are many who expect that change to get even tighter over the next week or so, I guess. So in terms of back to general aviation, if you weren't actually self-isolating right now, could you jump in your cub and go flying?
Yeah, I can, and I might yet today, because if I'm self-isolating and I go to fly the airplane, well, I don't have contact with anybody.
Yeah.
I, I go into the hangar, I get the airplane out, and go fly it. So I don't have to interact with anybody.
It's a new
So,
term. Sorry.
so yeah, I would do that, and I may yet do that today or tomorrow if I have time just for a break.
I saw a fantastic term on Twitter yesterday, which I'd seen for the first time, called skysolating. So you can self-skysolate.
Yeah. Well, I mean, why not?
Yeah. In terms of general aviation overall, I was looking at the news, and clearly a lot of the commercial manufacturers are ramping down and furloughing people. Is there much news from the GA industry over there at the moment?
We're just running a survey now. We find, and it's hard to put numbers on it, but we find that about half of the respondents are saying we're shut down entirely. We've gone to online instruction. And about half are saying, no, we're still flying. We heard from a couple of instructors who work for schools that are still flying that they're not particularly happy about it because there's really no way to protect yourself.
Yeah.
You can't practically wear an N95 mask in the cockpit, even if you could get one. And so what do? You're basically rolling the dice. Because
Yeah.
a cockpit is too small to consider any kind of distancing. So my feeling is that as these caseloads ramp up, that's going to stop because people will just realize they cannot take that kind of risk, and it's not so much the risk of contracting the disease, which is high enough and bad enough. We're trying to do what everybody else is, which is to protect the medical infrastructure.
Yeah.
I mean, we are seeing it break down all over the place.
Yeah. Well, I cancelled a trip to New York a day before New York was closed to people from the Schengen zone, and I have to say,
Wise choice.
Yeah, I was sometimes in life. It's taken me a long time to get to the point of making wise choices, but that was one of them. Wise choice number one so far.
Yeah, I think you're not alone in that regard. People are waking up to the fact that this is not business as usual.
Yeah.
It's you have to make smart decisions that they're not necessarily extreme decisions. They're just smart decisions. And we're all having to do that. And there's certainly going to be an impact. Of course, in airlines in the U.S., Delta's parked 300 airplanes. Southwest has parked a bunch. United. All of these airlines are feeling the pinch. The load factors are down at least 50%. And we're seeing sporadically, we're seeing closures of ATC facilities, approach and centers because of detected COVID cases. And that's sort of a cascading effect. And we're just going to see that. And that's probably going to go on for a while.
Yeah, I think I saw what was it? Midway and McCarran had effectively gone to Unicom for ground ops.
Yeah, Indianapolis Center has shut down. A segment, JFK, shut down for a bit. There have been a few others.
Yeah. So in terms of the manufacturers, have you heard anything about Textron or Cirrus or Piper? I mean, I'm assuming that most of those are slowed down from a workforce point of view.
Well, Textron has furloughed, not completely. I think they're doing some kind of a rotating furlough, but largely they've let the workforce go home. I don't know about Piper or Cirrus or any of the others. We haven't heard anything from them yet. We're just about ready to check because I don't see how they can continue to operate normally.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. It's going to be, and I guess the next week or so in the US is quite critical when we see how far you ramp up that exponential curve.
Well, let's see. We are this week. Today is Thursday. So by Friday, we will exceed the number of total cases in Italy.
Wow.
And by Monday or Tuesday, we'll be past China. And that is a function of two things. One is that our initial testing was abysmally bad. It was just terrible. It may be starting to catch up, but because of the ramp up in testing, it's really difficult to get an accurate figure of how much of that is actually increases in cases. So we're flying blind, maybe flying more blind than a lot of other countries are, because we did two things wrong. We burned off 6 weeks to 2 months not getting the testing accelerated, and then we didn't understand and react to how critical the medical protection equipment issue was.
Yeah.
So it's going to be very difficult to catch up on that.
Yeah.
And I think that's true about everywhere, isn't it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm not sure, if you go back 3 or 4 weeks, I'm not sure many people really saw this coming to the extent that we're all living it now. And certainly in terms of things like PPE and ventilators. And I mean, to a certain extent, you can turn on the manufacturing capacity for that kind of thing, but clearly you can't turn on the tap and create more doctors, more nurses, and more auxiliary staff around that in a short time.
Well, I've quite a few of our readers are medical people, and I correspond with a couple of them. One of him's an emergency room doc, and he says even though the Trump administration is claiming that the PPE is getting out there, they're not seeing it yet, and they don't need it next week. They need it tomorrow.
Yeah.
They need it very quickly, and this is true throughout the U.S. We're just not seeing the story that, yeah, this stuff is getting out there. Well, maybe it will in the next few days, but it really needs to.
Yeah, and I guess not to be too blunt about it, Florida probably has an older than average population for U.S. states.
The median age in Florida is 42.
Oh wow!
The median age in Italy, I believe, is 45. So we're just a little bit younger than that. But here's something interesting, that the median age in Germany is lower or higher. It's 46 or 47, so it's higher than Italy. And they have thus far had a less drastic increase in case load and lower case fatality rate so far.
Yeah. Well, I guess the next few weeks are going to be critical. Thank you very much for your time. Thanks for your insight. If things change significantly over the next few weeks, I may well drop you an email and see if you're up for another chat, and catch up and see how we're doing then. And I'll do some, and tell you how in the UK, incidentally, most of the general aviation only airfields are closed effectively because of the movement restrictions we've got. Nobody's flying, although there are a couple of exceptions that people are now spotting that on sort of Flight Radar 24 and tracking down registrations and wondering what they're doing. But effectively, everything's grounded, really. Airfields are just closed.
Do you have mandatory business closures?
For restaurants, pubs, bars, stuff like that, yeah. And it's a moot point as to whether it's mandatory, because I'm not sure the government has the power, but I think it's about to vote itself the power if it hasn't done so already. So, but they're closed anyway. And so as an example, all of the McDonald's are closed in the UK, which is just shocked quite a few people, I guess. I can live without it myself.
Has there been any shelter-in-place orders?
Not to the extent that you have. I mean, effectively, we are told to stay at home if you can stay at home, to work from home if you can, only work if you're in an essential industry, as it were, or you can go out to shop, you can go out to help elderly relatives or elderly people who need care. You can go out to collect medicines from a pharmacy, and you're allowed to exercise once a day, be that a walk or a run or a bike ride, or walking your dog. It's not controlled to the extent where it is in France, where you need to self-certify and carry a piece of paper around with you. But I think many people think that stricter restrictions are coming.
It may come to that.
Great speaking to you.
Okay.
And, look forward to catching up soon one day. Maybe at Oshkosh. Who knows? Maybe not.
We'll see. Stay healthy.
Thanks very much, Paul. You too.
See you. Bye.
See you. Bye-bye. Okay, thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed it. Paul's certainly someone who's got massive insight into what's going on, and does an awful lot of critical thinking, as you know, if you follow his stuff. If you enjoyed this, please give us a thumbs up. Please subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you get a reminder. Better still, subscribe to Flyer, which you can get at this URL, www.flyer.co.uk/shop. £7.50 on direct debit gets you a copy of Flyer or 13 copies of Flyer to your door throughout a year. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.